Hello, hello, hello. It is a beautiful day today. The sun shines and it's gorgeous. And I want to read a couple of notes that I have taken at the other house. So this is the first one. I am a lonely herd animal. I have no intellectual communication with another sensitive and cognitively thinking person. A real intellectual who is alive currently is Tom Ford. I have perfume on me. Orchid Soleil. Nobody there to be there as a human nurse, who is not my protégé, child, or fearful coward. So, and then I wrote some more over here on this paper. Giving up ego is like falling into a trance. I feel like letting go of the hurt, kissing my arm and allowing the ego, the hurt, the trauma to freely speak to me. How to read my own notes. I feel like letting go of the hurt, kissing my arm and allowing the ego, the hurt, the trauma to freely speak to me, causing me to just lie down in bed, smelling my perfume. Did I not understand this well? What Judy Krishnamurti said. The largest obstacle for humans is the fear of what others think of them. Okay, think about that for a moment. Fear of rejection and bullying. It's going on in all of us. When I kiss my arm and say, I am equally precious as every other living being and all consistency and material, then there is no point in looking at other people anymore with any anticipation. The path goes within oneself. Nothing is gained from others. Look only towards those people, dogs, humans, animals, who love you and really care about you. Then there is real love, community, friendship happening. So I just wanted to capture these notes before I put them away into the far corners of my bookshelf, and maybe they'll get lost or something. So yeah, and I also got a matching putty which I want to use. And it's easier said than done to tell someone, don't worry about what other people think of you. We do worry. This thing is there, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, And so let's just as well acknowledge it. It's there. We are afraid of what other people think of us. And just sit with it. Sit with it as good as you can. Just start with 10 minutes per day. Just 10 minutes. You can do it. You can sit within 10 minutes still. You can do this. You don't have to be jumping up and down with ADHD. So you can sit still for 10 minutes. And if you can't do 10 minutes, then do 5 minutes. Sit down for 5 minutes every day until you're ready to expand it to 10 minutes and then 20 minutes. Eventually expand it to an hour. And don't make this into an achievement. That's not an achievement. This has nothing to do with the worldly, the field of reality, as Jiddu Krishnamurti calls it. Our field of reality, our 3D dimensional, everything is concrete type of thinking, materialistic type of thinking, Newtonian type of thinking, dualistic, linear. It's always this linear type of thinking. It always goes like, oh, here it ends, with finalities and with the word everything or nothing, or beginning and end, and that's the reality that we live in. But is that the ultimate reality, as in truth, as in, is that everything? No, that's just our time, space, perception that we have here on this planet, on this particular planet. Time may be appearing very differently on a different planet, or in a different solar system, or in a different multiverse universe. So the infinite cosmos is everything, but I have to put in parentheses that everything does not exist. This seems very abstract, but it's true. The word, the concept of everything is a finality, and that doesn't exist because there are no finalities in the infinite cosmos. It keeps going on. And that's beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. It's amazing that this earth is still here. Friedrich Nietzsche died in 1900. Over 100 years later, everything is still there. Not everything, no. Some species have become extinct since then because of human activity. It's true. Let's face the fact, okay? Let's face the fact. Let's look at it for what it is, Let's look at the uglinesses in the world, and let's face it. Without condemning anyone, but let's just face the facts. Because if we don't face the facts, how can we fix them? The ultimate truth is love. Infinite love. Real love is infinite love, unconditional love. And they call it divine, and I find that word a little bit kitschy. So I call it the infinite cosmos. It's basically one unity, but that is endless. A unity always implies a finality. So the unity without end. I call it the blue God. It's interesting because the sky is blue, but that's not what led me to this name. The name came out of a migraine headache vision that I had in 2003. I was an atheist at that time, but sort of like an half-baked ghost fearing in the closet, a closeted ghost fearer. That's what I was, pretending to be an atheist. So I had nothing, nothing but hatred for everyone. Not everyone. They're good people. I was pretty sour and bitter, particularly about this one guy that Paul and I called the God guy. We called him because he portrayed himself as a guru in Santa Monica. He's probably dead now because he was already very old. He was like, I don't know, 80 or something at that time, and that's over 20 years ago. So, and then he had a disciple who looked just like the pictures of Jesus Christ. So we called him the Jesus Christ guy. And we only went there one time because a friend of us took us there. There are vegans. There are vegans. There are raw food vegans. Raw food vegans. I didn't know this has become a religion. So, so we went there, and that was, I mean, it's comical. This entire evening was comical because the God guy, when he did some kind of spiritual new age prayer before we ate, all of this is a relic from his fundamentalist Christian upbringing. So, but he doesn't realize that. He thinks he's cutting edge. So, did this prayer, and then he says with this real angry tone, let's not sway off into any negativity. No negativity. This has to be all positive thinking and non-violent communication. Okay, it has to be all, yeah. And the whole thing sounded very patronizing. It was a very patronizing, angry tone. We didn't say anything, so we were meek and mild. The girls, we were talking, chatting, laughing. It was kind of, we made it nice, The girls, there were 3 women, and including myself, sitting there on one end of that large table and not looking at the Last Supper situation across the table. So, and I really didn't say anything to offend anyone, I kept it really neutral and just was really nice. I went out of my way to be accommodating, and I complimented the Jesus Christ guy in the kitchen. He made me work extra hard because I was sort of, the newcomer there, the newcomer and the last comer. for that evening Last Supper. So they only used lemon peelings that they blended or in a Vitamix, and they used that as soap. And I complimented him. I said, this is a real great, wonderful thing, a great idea to do. And so Jesus Christ guy was flattered, and he thought he thought that was cool that I complimented him. But he didn't, after I said that, he didn't offer to keep washing the dishes for me. No, I had to keep washing the dishes for an hour. It's okay. I did it. I didn't mind. It was an experience, the whole thing. And oh, we also had to take our shoes off. That was hard on me with my OCD. So, but I put up with it. And so, and then towards the end, yeah, and that the old guy, he tried to also make a pass on my friend Hillary. She's an artist, and it was like, dude, you are 40 years older than Hillary, and uh, you should come to terms that she is not into you. She's also married. But anyway, he forced his body on her. It was awful. And then in the very end, he started to, as we are putting our shoes on and on our way, talking and chit-chatting our way out the door with other people, the old guy, the God guy came, and he started in on my husband, and he said, he accused he accused my husband of being German. I guess he heard my accent, and then he thought we were both German. So, and my husband said no, he's from, actually born in Santa Monica, is like fourth, fifth generation United States citizen. And then he started in, and he yeah, then he talked about Jesus, but he didn't say the name Jesus. He said that we need to humble ourselves. Well, he is not humble at all. And then, and he just became very aggressive. And then my husband said, this God that you're talking about, is that Jesus Christ? And Hillary very fearfully tucked on Paul's sleeve like this. But Paul didn't, he didn't let her silence him. She was just afraid of a confrontation. I didn't know what to say. I was standing there, and then the God guy, then he got mad. Then he talked himself into a rage. Like he was the only one who was talking really forcefully and angry and all of this, after he had given that sermon in the beginning before we ate of non-violent communication, being peaceful, was on no negativity, no negative word, right? And then he's the one who's breaking all of those rules non-stop. It already started with him having that bad attitude and all of this, and then it just burst out of him, in the end. There is so much unfinished business, it's just not funny anymore. I mean, it's, if it wasn't so incredibly funny. But but man, and then he got so angry, and he started talking about those butchers, those Germans. He's obviously has some kind of collective issue that he's never resolved. He identifies with himself as a victim. And those Germans, those butchers, those German, those butchers. and, and another lady came past, and she says, butchers, butchers? That doesn't sound good. I said, no, that does not sound good. And we were walking out the door, and the God guy got angrier and angrier and angrier. And then we finally went with my friend Hillary, the artist, went to away from his house and stood at the other side of the street, which is not his property anymore. And we just quietly talked there still for a while before we all left, before Hillary drove off and we drove off. and we just wanted to talk to her for a moment and just, express a little bit how we felt about this evening. And we talked quietly. Weren't loud or anything. So after a while, the door opened quite briskly of his house, and the guard guy came out and stood there with his long white hair. He thought it's cool, he's a hippie. And he shouted over to us and made these hand movements. Shh, 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 go home, go home. It's like, excuse me, this is public property of the city of Santa Monica. Um, we're kind of like talking to each other here. We don't need a God guy to shoo us away. I didn't say it, but that's what I thought. And it just gave me a real sour and bitter feeling that the way that guy has behaved, a real. And see, and I almost didn't, during that time that we were there, it was almost partly unconscious. See, that's when it becomes extra bad. And all of this unfinished business and him was completely unconscious. There was nothing conscious. After all these years that he had studied different types of meditation, vipassana and anapana, and compassion meditation, and Maitri, and all of these things, and he studied all of this rigorously, and they were giving yoga classes there, and he should know all of this, but everything completely buried underneath. Because all of these things, yoga, meditation, they were just additions on top of layers of layers of layers of layers of, down underneath the fundamentalism that's never gotten resolved, and just something else got layered on top, like yoga. Then came the raw food, get layered on top of that. Nothing got really transcended or dissolved or resolved. Nothing was resolved in him. Now I can look back on it and I can feel sorry for him, and I can see the entire situation from above, and I can feel really compassion for him for being so unconscious. But it's, of course, for someone like me, that was the time when I was already on my healing quest. No, wait a minute, didn't was I? Yes, I was already on my healing quest. I had already quit the drugs, and this is also very important for me to talk about, as David Foster Wallace's case tells that story with such gravity, and with such tragedy and horror and sadness. Much more than any of us could tell that story of what happens when someone quits one of these pharmaceutical drugs, particularly the ones for depression or OCD or any kind of paranoia, any of those drugs, And he was on Nardil, and I didn't know about. I have not taken Nardil. I have tried so many different ones, so including Cyprexa. That was hell. That was like Cyprexa, and then it comes with the side effect drug that one has to take right away. I didn't know that, my psychiatrist hadn't made that very clear to me. So I thought I was buried alive. I couldn't even lie down. I mean, it was so bad. But David Foster Wallace, he started to have health problems because of the long-term use of Nardil. He started to pass out in a restaurant. And so he quit the drug, then also started to research it. And, his doctor said, well, it's kind of old, that drug. better go onto the new ones. I was on all these new ones. And he decided he didn't want to be on any drug, which I fully understand, but he didn't understand what that entails to quit that drug, cold turkey. And his depression and all of the symptoms that he was actually treating with that drug, they came back with a vengeance. Because you have to understand that when we suppress with whatever chemical or whatever act out, matter of fact, if we suppress that voice that wants to push up, like I talked about yesterday, that wants to push its way up like a corkscrew, that's there for a reason. It wants to be resolved. And when we suppress that, with John, David didn't know, most people don't know. I didn't know, I did it too. So we listen to the gods in white, the psychiatrists, and we think, well, they have learned this, they must know what they're doing. Obviously they don't. They don't know how lethal and what a monstrous torture that implies, all of this. They don't know, obviously. So get into holistic healing. That's all I can say to all physicians out there. Get into holistic healing. Yeah. Well, I did, and I was on my healing quest, and the first time I quit the drugs, I think it was in 2001, after we got married. Somewhere down the line there, I quit the drugs, cold turkey. I was on Dr. Scholl's already, on his program. My massage therapist told me about that. Or I don't remember now exactly which came first, but it was around that time that I found Dr. Scholl's, and I quit the drugs the first time, and I could not handle it. It was so bad. All of my symptoms, the paranoia, the OCD, the avoidance, this unimaginable pain came up, and I didn't know what to do, what to make out of this. It was so incredibly painful. My entire past, all that pain is like the pain in such like a dull type of pain, like the boring stuff, coming up with such a vengeance. I didn't know how to deal with it. So I went back on the drugs. I went back to the shitty drugs and psychiatrist offices and psychiatrists that are all full of issues and problems, and that nothing had been resolved ever in those people. And so then I went to this old psychiatrist, and he was kind of sweet. He's a sweet guy, but I had some arguments with him about some things, because I saw that he was suffering from a collective victimization thing that has never been resolved. And then he started to pawn that off on me, and made me really mad, and I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to do straight talking at that time. And straight talking, as in, I mean by straight talking, I mean straightforward talking, that means being honest. That means saying, but, don't blame this entire nation, every single person, for this or that atrocity. That's what I should have said, but I was afraid, and lots of it was also unconscious. And see, when these things are unconscious, we don't even know how to do straightforward talking. So, and doing straightforward talking is so much more sensitive and so much more positive, in a healing way, in a supportive way. Within the framework of not using bad language, within the framework of not attacking someone, someone for something that they can't help it, I'm not even going to attack someone for attacking me. I'm just going to, but I have to point it out, I have to point out, hey, this has hurt my feelings. I can't be going, oh, what did the giraffe of Dr. Marshall Rosenberg say, his hand puppet. She said, oh, you don't say something negative, like the God guy. Don't say something negative. Don't say something negative. Okay, so yeah, that's not going to work, obviously. The negativity, the feeling is there. I can't be positiving it away. That's not going to work. We've seen that with the God guy. Okay, he tried hard to positive all of that away. It didn't work. Okay. It comes bursting up like a geyser. You squeeze like a like a like an air balloon. You blow up an air balloon. Okay, you have all that air in there. So you can squish the air balloon around. You can do that when there's only half. It's only has a little bit air in it. So squish it around like this here. Squish it around. If you tighten it here, real tight, positive thinking, you tighten it here, guess what happens? It comes out like this. Because the mass doesn't change. I hope that makes sense. So the mass of the pain is there. We can't talk it away. We can't reason it away. We can't do positive thinking and make it somehow evaporate that way. It doesn't evaporate. It's there, okay? And if we squish it together, it will pop up at another end. And it will pop up maybe in a situation where that geyser erupts of that pain, where it may be very embarrassing and very inappropriate. Where just the drop of a hat can trigger this up. And that's what I see with so many people in the world. Okay? And then we have society, and then we have New Age as another layer, another accumulation thing, another categorical imperative on top of this that says, thou shalt not be talking negatively. It doesn't work. It's not going to work. Okay. I keep my videos fair, friendly, and supportive. So I was accused of talking negatively, and I should be practicing nonviolent communication. I've known about this for a long time. I have studied this in depth, all of this, but with reason, not in terms of another accumulation of faith-based religion stuff on top of it. I study these things with an open mind and with a critical mind, with a rational mind. I weigh these things off. I get into it very deeply. I practice it. I test it. I try all of this. I see what it does. I see what happens when I do this or this or that. So I come to the conclusion that the only approach that we have in dealing with, and also, by the way, my husband right away, when I told him what that guy said, I should get into nonviolent communication. Obviously, he must not have watched my videos. I don't know how he even comes to this conclusion that I am not practicing that. And I've hurt my feelings, of course, and so my husband, he said he must have taken offense to something that you said in your videos. And so he takes this snarly, like, I'm doing nonviolent communication, and then it farts out the back door, in some kind of snarly, farty, vicious, steam hissing. But it comes, it's there. The hate is there. The hateful energy. There's a lot of people that are hating my guts. I mean, a lot of people out there that want me to commit suicide. because that what I say in chat rooms or in my videos does not sit so well with them, with their egos, yeah, to be correct. It would help them, but the ego says, no, we don't want that. We don't want truth. We don't want to deal with our issues. So, but instead of just leaving me alone, go your own way if you don't like what I say. But no, they come and they will. The guard bot of YouTube has already caught a lot of those hateful comments away. I never got to see them, so it was probably better that way. But the snarly backdoor farts, hissing things, they don't get recognized by the YouTube guard bot as offensive and as, you know, a form of psychological violence. So that stays. I get to read that, but I left it, you know, I agree with nonviolent communication. I don't agree with someone coming in with a back fart snarl against me. That's not the coolest thing in the world. That just goes to show that you have a lot of stuff that you haven't resolved yet, and that my videos are obviously triggering all of that shit up, you know. So, and I use the word shit and I use the word fart. Well, it's my choice. I choose to use it, so I use it. I'm not gonna let someone tell me that you can't use those words. Okay? You have to pay attention. You need to do non-violent communication. Fart, that's a violent word. Whatever, you know. I'm just pointing out the facts. Yeah, I show people what's going on, you know, and I use the language that I want to use for it, because I'm angry, and I have the right to be angry when I see bullshit in the world and bad behavior. I have the right to point that out. I'm doing you a favor if I point that out. No, I'm not going to put up with, I'm not going to hold the other cheek when some asshole comes along. You know, there's an anecdote in, what was it? I think it was in Thich Nhat Hanh's books. I think it was. There were tourists, or I don't know who wrote this, but there were tourists that went to Tibet, and they got to Ladakh, and that's the last places on earth where the people there, where they're really living very, very peacefully. And but you know, it becomes a clash now, starting to clash now with internet and with all these curious travelers that are going there, that bring their energy with them. But anyway, it was a long time ago. Still, there were the first hippies that went venturing out to Ladakh, and they wanted to get to a specific holy stupa or something, which is, those are little like wooden sheds that have a shrine in it with figurines of Buddhism, and they light candles in it and stuff like that. So anyway, that was, so all goes past what the Buddha said. You know, it's the Buddha never told people to make a religion out of this. But anyway, a lot of it is twisted, but some things are good. They don't use white flour, and they don't use any kind of refined ingredients. Everything is natural the way they make it, and they live very long there because they eat very natural food that had still been unpolluted. So the pollutants of modern industrialization had reaches their last basically. That hadn't reached there very much, at least. It's eventually the sour rain goes everywhere, as Dr. Scholl said. But anyway, these tourists, they wanted to get to the stupa, and they asked in their way that they were probably Germans. We Germans, when we ask the question, we go like, the path to the stupa goes there, right? And for the Tibetans, when they, or I don't know, they've probably spoken English, and they spoke English and didn't understand the exact way of wording things. They actually thought that these German tourists were kind of dictating something. They said the path to the stupa goes there. So because they never use any kind of violence, which the whole thing comes from this very rigid Buddhist religion, which is a misunderstanding of Gautama Buddha. Okay, that's where it really comes from. That's where Dr. Marshall Rosenberg got it from. He was a Vietnam war protester in the 60s, and probably has been protesting along with Thich Nhat Hanh, I guess, and he'd probably been very familiar with all of it. And it's a good person, it's a real good person. But there's a misunderstanding that comes out of this, where when you cannot ever say, hey, wait a minute, this statement is not right. If someone says to you, they want to put your wife into a burqa and maybe tie this here, or maybe make her overheat in 100 degrees or something. It's just an example. And you're in a foreign country, and you think, oh, I can never be objecting. I have to always do what they want, always be positive. And you say, okay, yeah, put my wife into a burqa. It's a violation on many accounts to do this. Okay, it's extremely unethical. I hope I get this very ardent example to make sense. So, but anyway, in the case of these German tourists, they said the path to Stupa goes this way, right? And they go, yes, yes, and they bow. And they thought, okay, so the path to Stupa goes that way, as someone else had already mentioned. So they walk that way, and they get lost. They get lost somewhere in the Tibetan mountains and barely make it back alive. because these monks could not say, no, that's wrong, it goes that way. They could not say it's wrong, because that would go against the code of nonviolent communication. I hope I get this example really, really crystal clear now to the public. I mean, it could not be more clear, right? When someone wants to put your wife or your dog into a burqa, you have to say no. Yeah, you understand the word no? N-O. No. Okay? It's very clear. The word no is very clear. Yet, so many people don't know how to use it. Out of fear of social rejection, being a party pooper. What? You say no to this? You must be, where do you live? Behind the moon? You must be a dork. And then you say, yes, 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 I'm a dork. But my answer to that is no. And you stick with that, okay? So I hope that makes a lot of sense now, what I'm saying. So we cannot be going overboard with this nonviolent communication and just shoot off with this in the completely wrong direction. We have to use things within a framework of reason, I hope that makes a lot of sense to people. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Take care. Bye bye.